They want to own the children, but they don't want to play the responsibility of fathering. Because that is the harder part. And you'll see a lot of things happening on graduation parties. Children who have grown up the mother, but the father shows up and wants to take the best position on the high table. They want to sit in front of that flower on the high table because they are the father. Single mothers, you could have lost the dad. Something could have happened and that is not there. There's still room for you to identify a man. It could be an uncle, it could be your brother, it could be your late husband's brother, a man that you look at and think that they can make a contribution to your son's life.
Yes.
Attach them to that man.
Yes.
Let that man start to father that boy.
Yes.
Because as we always say, it takes a man to father a man. It takes a man.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us in today's podcast. Pastor Andrew is my name here at Encounter Church. We're here committed to building great men. We believe that when men are built up, they're a blessing to children and their household, their wives. Society is better. If you want to change any nation, build men. But also the reverse is true. If you want to destroy any society, demean their men, strip them of leadership and responsibility. When men are in disarray, society is in disarray. So today we are going to be talking about the crisis of fatherhood. Yes, you've heard well, the crisis of fatherhood. So I want you to call your friends, like this podcast, share it with all your colleagues as we talk about the crisis of fatherhood. We all know that fatherhood is in crisis. Every man that I have met in this world has a father wound, meaning has some emotional pain around how he relates with his father. Some of you don't even know who your fathers are. Some of you know who your fathers are, but you are disjointed. You are not part of them. So today, to dive into that content of the crisis of fatherhood in Uganda, I have my friend who has been here on this podcast. We serve together as church. So I'll allow him to introduce himself to you so that we dive into today's content. Gasta, you're welcome.
Thank you, Pastor. Pastor, my name is Gasta Kakaire. Like you have said, I am a man, and proudly so. I serve at Encounter Church. I lead the men. We have an investment club that is vibrant, and I'm privileged to be leading that team. I'm a father and husband to one wife, and happy to be here again.
So, Gasta, you're so smart, by the way.
Oh, thank you, Pastor.
Like always. You a father, right?
Yes.
How many kids do you have?
I have 4 kids.
You have 4 kids.
Yes.
Are you a good father?
Yes, I think I am. I am really convinced I am. But I've also got some feedback from the children. And for me, that means a lot.
Yeah.
My wife has also actually said I'm a good dad.
Very good.
Yeah, and for me, that's very important.
So you have empirical evidence?
Yes, I do.
You have also, I know you father a lot of children in the debate world, a lot of young people. How is that going?
Tough. I can tell you that every day there are new revelations, and I have discovered that a lot of young people, especially young men, are struggling with the presence of father figures.
Yes.
They have nobody to share life with. They are undergoing struggles, and they don't have a man that speaks to them. And I have taken on some responsibility to sometimes have conversations.
Yes.
Once in a while with some young people, especially those who come and disappear, and you're looking for them and you can't find them. Usually there's something. There's something. When you call them and get deep into conversations with them, you realize they are struggling with things. They've grown up with single mothers, and they are struggling, many of them, with identity. They don't know where they belong. Some of them are still wondering if they are boys or girls. And these are boys in their early 20s.
My goodness.
So there's quite a bit of work to do.
There's work to do.
Yes.
So it is said that 10% of children don't know their fathers. 10%. They have no clue who fathered them. Meaning there are men out there, 10% of men out there have children and they don't know.
Yes.
And we can see that recently, this year actually, we had an uproar of men saying we need to do DNA tests.
And we know what used to happen in those results.
And the results were appalling. That a man thought he had 10 children or 7 children, even 4 children,
Yes.
and 3 of them are not
his. But they still belong to some man.
But they belong to some
Yes.
man
And
who doesn't
know that he fathers the child. So
what would you say about that?
so first of all, Pastor, those statistics were very concerning. I didn't know things were that bad.
Yeah.
For me to know that only 5% of men
Yeah.
are actually into their lives and know they have their children and are there, and the rest of the men don't know that you have a whole 10% of men not knowing they have children out there.
Yeah.
I think that is really disturbing. And probably accounts for the many challenges we are seeing.
Yeah.
The children we see on the streets.
That's true.
These children have a father.
Yes,
but
by the way.
doesn't know
Yes.
that they have children out there.
Yes.
Yeah? There are so many children, even with mothers,
Yes.
that whose fathers are not known. Pastor, do you know that there are mothers with the children? But if you ask them who their fathers are, they don't know. Do you know there are children, there are mothers who have decided to give away children to other men because of probably their financial standing?
Yes.
And those are not the real fathers. The mothers know.
Yes.
You know, someone made a joke that if you want to know your true father,
Yes. Don't ask your father.
Your mother must first die.
Yeah.
The man she says is your father. That is the man you should go with.
Say that
so
again.
as long as your mother is alive, you don't know who your father is, because it can change anytime.
Wow.
So that is a big crisis. And you know that there are so many implications with the children, whether boy or girl, as we shall discuss later.
Yeah.
Absence of fathers
father
has immense implications. And I'll be reading you, there's a letter I landed on as I was preparing for this podcast of a child who wrote to his absentee father. He was writing to somebody he didn't know.
Yeah.
He didn't even know that letter would go to anybody. He knows he has a father. The fact he's alive, he knows he has a father. And the title is addressed, Dear Absentee Dad. And a child writes that letter to somebody and just pours out his feeling. And for me, that letter summarizes it all. Maybe I should read it to you now. It summarizes it all. Please. So he says, Dear Absentee Dad.
Yes.
That name means you should be here. The name Dad means you should be here, but you are not. When you left, pieces of my life went with you. I needed you to know I could count on you. We were supposed to build something together. Lots of things together. You could have played with me. You would have helped my confidence grow.
Yes.
You could have been there to build me up after a hard day at school.
Yes.
Instead, I got really mad. You could have helped me build important life skills. Mommy is doing her best to fill the peace that was always meant for the two of you. But there is something that only Dad can do. Wow. And for me, that last part is what caught my attention.
The person acknowledges.
Yes.
Mommy's doing her best.
Exactly.
But there are things mommy cannot do.
That only dad can do.
So before we dive in what dad can do, the statistics also tell us 40% of fathers are not involved in the lives of their children. They either shipped them away, or like you said, they left them with mommy, or mommy thought it fit. Gasta is not financially stable. I will not even tell him. So they are not involved. They know that they have children. But those children are in the village.
Yes.
Those children are in maybe auntie.
Yeah, Jaja.
Jaja.
There's a lot of Jaja things.
There's Jaja thing in our culture.
Very much.
Speak about that.
Pastor, I think there are about 3 types in my view. 3 types of father absence. One, I think, is emotional absence.
Yes.
2 is physical absence. But I also think there is absence of both.
Both physical
and emotional.
And emotional.
There are parents who are physically unavailable or physically absent, but try to connect. And that is a parent or a father who knows that they have a child.
Yes.
So they tried, and for many
School
reasons.
fees,
Yeah, exactly.
they
They even try to speak to the children. Sometimes there's been, court verdicts where they are not supposed to have access to the children physically.
I have
because those things are also now happening here.
I have those cases.
We used to watch them in movies.
Yes, no, I have them now.
So such a parent is physically not present, but he's trying to emotionally connect. But there is also that father who comes home, who lives home with the children, but has no relationship and sometimes no connection and no communication with the children at all.
He's around, but he's disengaged.
Exactly. Now, what is happening is there is delegation of responsibility.
Yeah.
A lot of fathers do not understand the magnitude of their role. They do not understand the magnitude of our responsibility as fathers.
What it means to be a father.
Culturally, you realize that in Uganda, most of the cultures say, Omwana abera wa musajja.
Yes.
That as soon as the child is born, they take on your name.
Yes.
They are your child.
Yes.
Even when you divorce the woman, you take the children are your children.
Yes.
But men are not exercising that. They want to own the children, but they don't want to play the responsibility of fathering. Because that is the harder part. And you'll see a lot of things happening on graduation parties. Children who have grown up the mother, but the father shows up and wants to take the best position on the high table. They want to sit in front of that flower on the high table because they are the father. I have also seen situations where people are pulling ropes when it comes to traditional marriages.
Yes.
The daughter is introducing. Where do they go?
We take it?
He said, I grew up with Jaja. I want the function to be at Jaja's home.
Yeah.
Because that's where I grew up. That is like home. And the father now shows up because it's a finished product.
My goodness.
Because the hard work
has been done.
Of fathering has been done or not even done at all. Because some children are lucky to have other people playing in, like filling that gap. They may not be their biological fathers, but there is a man figure that has filled the gap. But some of the young people are unlucky. There is not even anybody
to fill it.
And so they are growing up like this young man whose letter I just read, with only the mother. But when they are lucky enough to sprout to a certain stage, some man shows up and says, I am the father. I'm sure you've seen that. And they want to take the best position. They want to benefit from the opportunities the child is availing.
They ask for bride price. They say, now you need to give me bride price. My daughter is getting married. But the daughter is saying, Daddy, you were not there. I don't know you. But the man wants the privilege.
And they will set how many cows?
Yeah. But they are not there. Graduation happens. They have never visited this girl or this boy. They don't know them. But now they say, I'm supposed to be on the high table. The fights begin.
Yes. Yes.
So, what makes men run away from father?
I think that's a very important question and really the gist. So, in my opinion and with my experience, and you know that I grew up fatherless, so I probably have a few reasons why I think my dad ran away. For me, my dad's first reason for absence, which I know also applies to many men, is the fact that he had more than one family. So he had to divide his attention to the two families. And if you have grown up in a polygamous family, you know there is this whole favoritism conversation that comes in those families, where the father or the husband kind of favors one of the women and their children than the other. And so there are high chances that they will spend more time.
The woman they like.
Exactly. And they like them and like the children more. So for me, we suffered from that. My father was absent because he was with the other family most of the time. But two, sometimes it is insecurity on the side of the man. And for me, I think my dad's case also had that bit.
Of insecurity.
Yes. So my father retired early, and his retirement was circumstantial because the company he was working for closed shop in Uganda. and left. And he didn't seek other employment after that. He just went to the village and became a peasant. My mother, on the other hand, continued being a professional woman and unfortunately left the area where my father's village was and shifted to another town.
Cool.
And so that insecurity kicked in.
And no job.
Exactly.
Your wife has gone away.
Exactly.
You're remaining with this other family.
Yes. And then there is the financial bit, which we cannot run away from. The fear and sometimes lack of money to provide. So I know that one of the challenges my father had is that he didn't have enough resources to sustain this family and sustain the other family. So the best thing was to be absent from the other family. And because he knew and probably also thought that my mother, being that she was working, was able to provide for the other children. So he sat back. He sat back, and because earlier on he had a fairly good job, I'm told my father had 4 cars.
Wow.
But when I was growing up, he didn't even have a motorbike.
Wow.
So even that affected him a great deal.
Yeah.
Going out to and being seen by people who used to see him drive 4 different cars, he decided to bury his frustration somewhere. And as a result was absent from us. But there's also conflict and disagreement among families, among spouses. And again, that also played into my case. I know that my mother and my father disagreed.
Yes.
When I grew up, I realized that my father did not want my mother to take that job and move away from where she was. But because my mother knew the implications, and hadn't my mother taken that decision, I probably wouldn't be even on this platform with you.
That's true.
Because there is no way we would have done school. There is no way. There was just not going to be finances. So I can say that my mother sacrificed her marriage for us. She sacrificed her marriage for her children. And
she chose
to
look at her children.
Yes.
And say, regardless, I want this man. There's a bit of conflict, and especially if you say there's another woman.
Yes.
Of course, mommy thinking,
he's covered.
He's covered. He's covered. Let me go for the ones who are not covered.
Exactly. Wow. So those are some of the reasons.
There's something you mentioned there that I think is very important. The frustrations, the disappointments Daddy had.
Yes.
Because those disappointments, men out there are disappointed, they are frustrated. And hence, they are not involved in the lives of
the children.
So, Gasta, why is fatherhood? Because we are going on and saying fatherhood is a crisis, fatherhood is good, these are the things that have caused it. Why is fatherhood important for us even to have a podcast talking about fatherhood?
So, Pastor, in my opinion, fatherhood is the foundation of life. The father starts to play a role in a child's life before they are born. A lot of times we think that a father is only supposed to be there for children who are growing, teenagers, to guide, to discipline, and so on. But science has actually revealed, I was reading on an American website this morning, that the lack of a father is responsible for even stillbirth.
Wow.
And it is, if children are born, they are likely to be low weight.
Just because the father is not present.
Just because the father is not present. So our role as fathers starts way back. But for a child to grow straight, there must be a father present. It doesn't matter whether that child is a boy or a girl. And I see a lot of times when children are orderly at home, young as they are, because of the male voice in the home.
Yes.
And where the children come to you as a father for assurance, for security. Like, father is Superman.
Very
Daddy
good.
is Spider-Man.
Yes.
Daddy is the greatest man
Yes.
alive. Whatever they see in their cartoons as the courageous, the brave man, that is daddy. And the security that is built around them when they grow up in an environment where that character is present. Even when you're not saying much,
Yes.
I can tell you, there is a difference between a child who grew up in a house that has a father who was not saying anything,
Yes, but he was around.
but was around, than the big difference with the one who is growing up in a house that
Without
has
a
no
father.
father. at
That's
all.
true. That's true.
So that is our responsibility, and that is our core role. It's God-given.
Yes.
You cannot go and study it. There is no school, there is no seminar you attend,
Yes.
and then come with the clout
Of fatherhood.
of fatherhood. It's God-given. And there is no woman, whether their voice is deeper than the man, that can play that role. So that's where it starts. Before we start to play certain roles as fathers,
Yeah.
where you must exercise leadership. You know, there are these small things that us as men must play, including taking your children to school.
Yes.
Those roles should never be relegated to
That's
the
true.
mother.
That's true.
The conversation you have with your children
Yes.
when you're going to school are
Yes.
conversations that resonate with your children and are going to last a lifetime.
Forever.
Yesterday, I took my son to see a dentist. Pastor, that's one of the things, and you know it. When it comes to taking my children to the doctor, I don't delegate that. So I took my son to see his dentist, and we talked about things we have never talked about before. The freedom, the confidence, the pride he had to walk with his father. Because, you know, we walked about 1 kilometer, we parked somewhere and walked in Kampala with him. The pride he felt, I could see. He was not afraid of anything because he was with daddy.
Identity.
And I sat down with him, we had lunch, and I assured him. I also realized that it is important for us to have a one-on-one
Yes.
with the children and not take children
As
out
a group.
as a group,
Very good.
but have an opportunity
You gotta
to
speak to the men again with
interface.
that.
with
You
the
need to
children
say that again.
one-on-one. Men, it's important for us to have a conversation, a one-on-one conversation with the children. Because when you're with your children in a group, some of them overshadow others. You're going to pay more attention to the baby because they are the baby. You'll shut up others. But they are different age groups, and so they have different needs. So when you have opportunity, isolate your children, for lack of a better word, and take them out one at a time and just listen to them. Just take time and listen to them. Let them tell you all those crazy stories at school, church, their friends, and have an opportunity to speak into their life and assure them. Reassure them of the love. Don't assume your children know you love them. Tell them you do. Tell them you do. Tell them I love you very much and I love this moment with you. I love to spend time with you. I know sometimes I'm busy. You know when I'm busy, I'm really working. I'm working so we can live a better life. But this is your time with me and I love you so much. I am so proud of you. I know you're going to be a great girl. I know you're going to be a great boy. Tell them those things. Those things matter a great deal to those children.
Yeah.
And you don't know what difference they make.
Wow. That's powerful. So, there's no school that teaches you those things.
No.
But you're doing them. And yet you came from a broken family. You came from a place where you had no father. I've had men say, you know, Pastor, the things you're telling us to do, for us, we didn't have them. But look where we are.
That's true.
So, what are the steps? What are some of the things how did you learn to be a father?
I have been deliberate about this because of the gap, the lack of fatherhood, had on me. I know that sometimes I don't blame my father that much because I know he was also not fathered. I know that my father was the last born and his father died early. So he even didn't have an opportunity to interact. He doesn't have a story that he tells about his father. He doesn't. Unfortunately for him, he did not invest time in becoming, a good father, so he can impact us. And I was making a joke with you earlier that even telling me, my father has never told me he loves me, but I have actually told him I love him several times. And when I tell him I love him, he wants to cry and just doesn't know what to say back.
You're fathering him
because
now.
Okay, I'm fathering. I'm literally fathering my father right now, because I know that he needs to hear these things given his advanced age right now. I don't want him to get into having certain non-communicable diseases because he's depressed, because right now I know he's thinking, okay, I probably didn't do enough. I know he thinks about those things.
He's blaming himself.
Exactly. Because now when he calls you and you're able to support, he feels bad that, okay, he did certain things or didn't know certain things to you, but you're able to, and he feels a bit guilty. So I have to come and say, Dad, it's okay. It's okay. I love you. I want you to be happy. That kind of thing. But what have I done on my side? One of the critical things I have done, Pastor, is to be surrounded with good people and good men. Men like yourself. I learn a lot from you. I know you've also had struggles,
yes,
with fathering.
Yes.
But we have learned and supported each other along the way.
Absolutely.
And there's so many other men that we do life with in church.
Yes.
So while we don't sit there and go and get a bachelor's in fathering, but the interaction and the deliberate selection of which men you do life with, because you don't want to go into and start to learn and pick pieces from a toxic man, from a man that is not playing those roles. You need to be deliberate which man
you surround yourself
with.
Very good.
But there's also something I learned. When you discover a good man that is parenting well, allow your children to interact with that man.
Very good.
It's very important. It's just like, I come from a teaching background, and I know that when you're teaching, there are things you'll tell your students that they will start to take for granted because you always tell them the same things. When you bring another teacher and they tell them the same things you're telling them, they start taking the things very seriously.
The value goes up.
Exactly.
That's true.
So when you get your child start to have conversations with another man of virtue, they will start to elevate them, and they will start to realize the things Daddy was telling me. Oh, so these things are real.
When Daddy says, I love you.
Exactly.
And Pastor said, I love you. This is good.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense and elevates them. It boosts their self-confidence, which is one of the biggest challenges young people are having at the moment. Many young people are struggling with confidence. They are brilliant, but they don't have the confidence. And it is killing them. A lot of young people who are not even as smart, but with the confidence, are overtaking those who are smarter than them.
That's true.
Because they are confident. Because their parents, their fathers have told them, you can do it.
Yes.
You can do it. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You're great. You're a handsome boy. You're very brilliant.
You can make it.
Exactly.
They
come with that confidence.
Yes.
That also happens in schools. There are schools that assure their children, their students, that they are great, that they are the best. And those children will go through the system knowing they are the best.
I know. You go in the corporate space and they know.
Exactly.
Me, I'm here. Me, I'm this.
But there's also a challenge of struggling with identity.
Yes.
And this comes to the boy child. A boy that is not fathered will struggle with identity. Especially if they grow up with girls. They will struggle with identity. And my son, at an earlier, Gareth, struggled with that earlier. Because he had a sister. It started off jokingly. He wanted to wear dresses. Because the sister had outgrown the dresses and he wanted to wear them. And I realized there's something that I needed to work on. So there was an identity crisis at an early age. As early as 1, as early as 2. He was struggling with it. I had to start telling him that early, Gareth, you are a boy. Boys don't wear dresses. Boys
Come on now.
wear trousers and shorts and shirts.
Wow.
And if you start wearing those shirts, everybody is going to scorn you, everybody is going to laugh at you. You're going to be a girl, and yet you're a boy.
Very good.
And soon he started to say, don't you see me? I am a man. I am a boy. I wear trousers. I wear shirts. Mommy is a girl. She wears dresses. Don't you see the difference?
My goodness.
Now, had I not been there,
you'd be finished.
Had that house had only women, I mean, how was my wife going to model that and say, was it going to be a cartoon and say, cartoons wear dresses? Exactly. So, presence and active presence defines identity of the child.
Very good.
The children now who are struggling with identity in their 20s, even in their 30s, it started way back. It started way early when they were young. And I want to speak to the mothers, the very good mothers.
Please.
Again, going back to our letter that this young man writes to his absentee dad, where he says, Mommy has done a lot. Mommy has tried to fill certain gaps, but there are things she cannot do. Mothers, single mothers, you could have lost the dad. Something could have happened and dad is not there. There's still room for you to identify a man. It could be an uncle. It could be your brother. It could be your late husband's brother. It could be Jaja if Jaja is still around. It could be a pastor. It could be a colleague at work. A man that you look at and think that they can make a contribution to your son's life.
Yes.
Attach them to that man.
Yes.
Let that man stand to father that boy.
Yes.
Because as we always say, it takes a man to parent, to father a man. It takes a man. It doesn't take a woman to grow a man. It takes a man. So I'll attach them to that man and let them start to work with them and start to make a positive contribution to their life.
Wow. That's deep. I love the fact that you've said active presence. It's active presence. Because some men say, but I'm around, but they're not what? Active. So when we look at, you've told us the things we need to do. You've told the single mothers, you know what, involve other people. Women need to be active presence. How then would you advise in a situation, you hinted on it, where you are in court? Because it's happening to some men I know. They want to take your kids. How would you help such a man? Because now it's becoming more rampant, where women are just saying, men do whatever they want, give me my kids. How can a man fight? Should he even fight for those kids? Because most men now I'm interacting with, they're saying, if the mother wants me to get involved,
I will. If they don't
want,
I'll not.
I will not. What would you be an advice for such a man who is listening to this podcast?
So, first of all, Pastor, as we did say on one of the podcasts, is that the legal regime is anti-men.
That's true.
Gradually anti-men. A lot of, if you went to court with a woman, there are higher chances you're going to lose it. Because a lot of, legal regimes, there's been a lot of funding in the judicial system and so on. But one, nobody can take away the fact that you are the father of those children.
Hallelujah.
Nobody can take it away. It's God made. That's it. Whether the children are taken away from you or not, you still remain the father. And for me, what I would want to encourage men to do in those situations is to continue to do the best you can do for the children, whether they are there or not. Do your role, do your part. There is that position where you think and where you feel you have done your part, and you are psychologically satisfied that you have done your
You've done your best.
Yes, you have done your
Even
best.
when they have tried to push me away.
Exactly.
I have done
you
my
have
best.
done your best. So work hard and provide for the children, even when they are with their mother. Make that contribution, whether the court said you should make it or not. Pay school fees, whether they want it or not. Make a contribution. Do your role. And whenever you can, try to communicate. Try to communicate with the children as much as possible. Try to create an environment that is not aggressive. Because I think when two parents fight, usually the children are the biggest culprits. So create a healthy environment where your communication is tagged to the children. I know men who are doing that. I know one of my bosses who is doing that, where there is just no communication with the mother whatsoever. But the man decided to actually walk away from the home and left the wife and children in the house, left them there, and his attention is on the children. When he goes there, he stops at the gate, calls the children out, talks to them, and leaves whatever they brought to the children, and goes away.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he's doing his best to still reach the hearts of the children.
Exactly.
In spite of the conflict they've had with the wife or the girlfriend.
And while we think the children don't see these things, they actually see them.
Yeah.
The children will actually know and see that you're doing your best. And many times we have seen children challenge their mothers.
That's true.
When the mother is trying to be so harsh and the children feel the father is doing their best, they will call their mother to order.
Yes.
And it's a matter of time before these children grow to a certain level that they will start to look for you.
That's true.
If they feel that you actually
done your best.
Done your best. So at the end of the day, you win.
So that's so beautiful. Do your best as a man. Be there. In spite of the pushback, be there. So Gasta, you grew up in a family that, as we come to the end, you grew up with a family where daddy was not present. Of course, it was hurting. He had his own issues as a man. There are very many men there, including myself, who have struggled with father-son, father-daughter relationship.
Yes.
But for the years I have known you, your relationship with your dad is actually now tight. There has been a place of reconciliation. There's been a place of thriving, I would say. I hear you telling me, man, I'm going to check on my dad. Dad is going through this. How did you get there? Because most men are still stuck, especially our generation. We don't want to, because now we're doing well. Now, daddy, squetaga, I don't need you. Stay in your lane. I stay in my lane. Most men in our age groups, we are connecting more with our moms.
That's true.
We're not connecting with our fathers. But for you, you have gone beyond that barrier. Now you connect with your dad. How has that journey been like, and what are some nuggets we can learn as men out there to reconnect with our fathers now that we are also fathers and we're big?
Pastor, answering that question could get me a bit emotional, because it's been a very difficult journey for me to completely forgive my father and choose to reconnect with him. The challenge is that for my case, there are men who are not connected to their fathers, but their fathers and mothers are together. But my case was different. So my parents were away from each other. The first thing that I did when the communication sector came up and smartphones, so mobile phones came, I decided to buy my father a phone and also bought my mother a phone. They were living about 200 kilometers away from each other. And so because of the excitement of phones, they actually started to call each other. And I went and sat my father down and told him, Daddy, I actually told him that you need to kukwana my mother again. So use this phone to do that.
Wow.
Because I knew that I wanted them to reconnect. I knew it was going to become difficult for them to get back together and start living together, but I knew they can start to talk. And whole story short, they now talk and now visit each other. And I was also able to move my mother a little closer to my father and build her a house near my father, maybe about 15 minutes away.
Wow.
So they are able to visit each other and they are able to communicate. But to answer your question, I realized that I only had one father. For all the years I spent with my mother had not mentioned another man. Even in all difficulty, where my mother would never say, my husband or my man, should all say, your father. There was just that one man that
Yes.
my mother used to refer to as my father. And so I realized I didn't have another opportunity to meet another man and call him father. So for all the things I was told and saw my father do or not do, including misappropriating money that was meant to pay my fees. And that is one of the most hurting things
That one hit
that
us.
ever happened to me. That I did not go to the school I could have gone to, and probably would be a different person now.
Yes.
But my father made that not happen.
They gave daddy money.
And daddy diverted the money. Wow. And for a whole year, my mother knew I was in a particular school, but I was actually not in school. I was in the village.
Because
looking
daddy
after
had
cows
taken
and
the
doing
money.
what- because daddy had wanted the money. That was hard. But when my mother forgave my father and decided to continue talking to, I had no reason to hold my father. So I deliberately decided to establish a relationship, even when I knew my father was so guilty. My father has over 15 children, but he calls me his best friend.
Wow. Wow.
Because I have been very deliberate to build that relationship, that my father can call me and say, my friend, you've not called me in a week. What's going on? I just called to check on you. That was not him. But it has taken me. It is going to be difficult for your father to take the first step in our age. It's going to be very difficult.
That's a good one.
That
Say that
probably
again.
will not happen. It's not going to be possible for your father. If you're my age, it's going to be difficult for your father to take the first step. Tata utalina kyakwetaaza kati. But you need him.
Wow.
So as a man, we humble ourselves. We swallow our pride. We swallow the anger and take the first bold step and reach out to your dad and start to cultivate a relationship. You have no other father. And there's pride in knowing your father. There's pride in doing life with your father. There's pride in just moving and going to look to check on your father.
That's true.
There's pride. There's still a lot, even with all the things he was not able to do, there's still a lot you can learn from your father. I have learned a lot from my father. Can I tell you?
Yes, please.
My father told me, in this advanced age, my father told me never to marry a second wife.
Wow. Wow.
At some point, my father had 5 wives. At some point, he had 5.
Wow.
Because those 16 children are mothered by 5 women. And at some point, all those women were at home.
Wow.
My father was this kind of man who had 4 women in the same house. Different bedrooms. Same house.
Wow.
Semaka.
Wow.
Typical Semaka. Where today he would sleep in this room, today the other one. It was that kind of setup. But my father sat me down a couple of years ago and told me, my son, I love you very much. I don't want to go through what I went through. Never marry more than 1 wife. My father told me that.
Wow. A man who had 5.
Exactly. Now, these are conversations you'll not hear
Until
you reconcile. For a man to go that deep and tell you that he made mistakes and doesn't want you to make the same mistakes. It takes love, it takes connection. And that can only happen when you reconcile with your father. So there's a lot of benefit. But you also want to take your children to their grandfather.
That's true.
My father loves my children deeply. And they love him. I know that Gareth looks like my father.
Yes.
And every time people see him, they're like, Mzee. There's a day we were somewhere and some women said, this boy, if we found this boy somewhere, we don't have to ask where to take him. We know where to take him.
Wow.
But that love and connection can only come when you have reconciled.
So what I hear you say is that we need to forgive.
Yes. And forget.
And forget the past. I love that we need to take the first initiative. 100% the fathers of our generation will not come to us.
No, they will not. They are super proud.
So meaning we're supposed to make the first step. The third thing I've heard is that phone thing for me, what it brings out is what I've seen with most men now. We're too busy. So we say, Daddy, I didn't need you. When I needed you, you were not there.
Exactly.
So, really.
We actually miss their calls and never return.
We never return them.
Yeah.
We never return their phone calls. We never... Mind your business. I mind
My business.
my business. But what I'm seeing is that we need to cultivate and say, you know what? You're my dad. I will never have any other
Father.
Let me go for it. Let me go for it. What advice would you tell to mothers who are so bitter about dads that have not been present, that maybe mistreated them, but now want to connect? I like that your mom was able to open her heart to allow at least a communication. So what would you tell to those women that have now, your mom, if it was a contemporary woman of today, that would be in court.
Yeah.
Now our days we're dealing with court. Women are bitter. They are angry at these men and fathers that have not been there. What would you tell such a woman who is bitter, angry? What would you tell them?
So first of all, that anger consequently spills down to the children. And I know that anger comes from a position of this man not necessarily that the man has not loved you as a woman, but because the man has not taken responsibility for the children. But the same children that you know you love so much and would have wished that man to take responsibility of are the very children you are affecting by the toxic environment and toxic relationship you're having with that man. So things happen. Things happen in relationships. Everything that has happened and has caused bitterness is peculiar, and we may not go into the nitty-gritties. But I think bottom line is to cultivate an opportunity where you create reconciliation, where there is at least communication. You don't have to be angry with each other. You don't have to be abusive. I know couples, I know people who literally insult each other.
Yes.
You don't have to
ugly.
Yeah, you don't have to degenerate. I actually call it degeneration. It's not necessary. It's not healthy for the children. It's not healthy for you even. You don't have to degenerate to that level. You can agree to disagree.
Yes.
Honorably. At the end of the day, this man is the father of your children. And you have to respect them. If you need the children to respect him, you have to respect him, at least from that position, that they are the father of your children. And there is no other man that fathers your children. There will be a point where you'll need that man to either pen their signature on something, or come to a farm, or come to be present somewhere. They are the father. Last weekend I attended a church baptism of a toddler, where the two parents are separated.
Yeah.
They don't live together. But they agreed to come and attend the baptism. And a man came and stood as the father of the child, because that's the father of the child.
That's true.
And they have their bitter disagreements. But I was happy to know that they could come and
for a common cause.
So the children are the bridge. The children are the bridge between the two of you. Yeah. And you probably, if you have no reason to communicate, the children should be the reason you communicate. But that communication should be good. So I want to encourage mothers. Forgiveness is healthy.
It is.
Even for your own life.
Yes.
For your own heart. Forgiveness is healthy. Forgive for the sake of your life, for the sake of the children and their health.
Wow. Many have heard it. Ladies, you have heard it. We can alleviate this issue of fatherhood. We can stop the fatherlessness in this nation. And it starts with you, the man. Before I give my parting shots, what are your parting shots today?
So, Pastor, I would like to share just a few insights on the benefits.
Yes.
The benefits of a father's presence. Because I think sometimes we forget.
Yeah.
I don't think we don't know, but sometimes we forget. One is the emotional support. The children need your emotional support. As the children grow up, Pastor, you know now we are going to soon start parenting teenagers.
Yeah.
And those teenagers need you as a father. They need you more as a father. So they need your emotional support. But they also need a model. They need a positive model. They need somebody that they can look at
Yes.
and look up to.
Yeah.
And that is not delegatable. It can only be done by you as a father. They also need encouragement from you. You know, that sense of validation. They need to hear it from you. I love you, you'll do better, you'll be great. They need to hear it from no other man but you. And that can only happen when you're present. But they also need your security as a father. So those are some of the reasons why you need to be there. I know that we are financially challenged, and I know that you don't need to be giving your children a million shillings of pocket money for you to demonstrate that you love them. That's not the things that you're supposed to be doing. Your presence and the words that come out of you and the environment around you plays a big role in having those children grow up well.
Thank you so much, Gasta.
Thank you, Pastor.
You've heard it from Gasta, one of my men that I love, and we do life together. If you implement the things that we have shared together here, we believe that fatherlessness will be reduced or even eliminated. As a man, you are the father. They will never have any other father. I always tell men, do whatever it takes to be involved in the lives of your children. Please sacrifice everything to just make sure you're connecting with them emotionally, physically. Your presence is there. You are challenging your children. You're spending time with them. You're investing your resources in them. Because guess what? We can build the greatest empires that will never help. When we're teaching in our class for men, we say we major in the majors and minor in the minors. The challenge is that most men, they want to minor in the majors and major in the minors. That's disaster. The greatest gift you can ever give to this world is to raise the next generation in such a holistic manner that they have no absence of fathers. These statistics of 10%, we don't know. They don't know their fathers. 40%, they're not even involved. They know they have children, but they're not involved. The 45%, they have limited involvement. All they do is pay school fees and all that, and only 5% are doing the right thing. We want to change that paradigm. We want to be the kind of fathers that are present, that are engaged, that are walking the talk, that are investing all we have for our children. Why? Because tomorrow needs our children. And you are the man to do it. As a man, if you're broken inside, you have not had a good relationship with your father, I want to challenge you. This week, this month, reach out to daddy. Gasta bought a phone and started from there. Do something. Go to your father and reconcile. From me to you, God bless you. We love you. Please make sure if this information has blessed you, share it with other men. Share it with another wife. Share it with another man. Share it with your young men so that they can develop and be great fathers. From us at Encounter Church to you, God bless you. Have a blessed, blessed day. Bye-bye.